feel very I feel very humbled and honored to be able to present to this group. I have so much respect for the Baha'i faith. I became a Baha'i in 1980. I'm still trying to figure out how to be a Baha'i, but it's a work in progress, as we all know. I just feel that it's very closely aligned with my own Native American heritage, my philosophy, my spirituality. And so it really strengthens, one strengthens the other. And so I'm very excited to talk about agriculture with you today. Um, but just and thank you for the introduction to myself. I did come from the Kuskokwim River. Good pronunciation. Good job. A lot of our words are hard to pronounce. But I'm Degaton Dene and also a Nupiat from Alaska. And I think it would be good if I could just share a short piece of our creation story of the Athabascan people with you, because I think our traditional stories they go to the root and the heart of our spirituality, and they connect all the different parts of ourself together. And so it was a long, long time ago, and on the Yukon River, the village of Anvik, which has been there for like 14,500 years, according to the archaeologists. A very treasured elder crossed over to the spirit world. And as the people always do, they hold their ceremonies and they also hold memorials. And so people in their canoes and in different ways, they traveled to the village in order to honor this treasured elder. So the people, it was the fall of the year, and the people stayed for weeks, telling stories, singing songs, eulogizing the one that they loved, and just sharing food together, the traditional foods of the Athabascan people. And so there was a huge giveaway. So everything was given away, all the possessions. It's the native way, the giveaway is. And so at the end of the time, when everybody journeyed home, it was getting into the fall, and the people had spent most of their food serving all of their guests. And so they were scrambling to collect more food for the winter so they could make it through the winter. And what happened is, the storms came early that year, and it trapped them inside of the village so that they couldn't go out and do hunting. And the people began to be concerned. How were they going to feed their elders? How were they going to support the babies and all of the, generations in between? And so, of course, as Native people always do, we began to pray. And we prayed for help from the spirit world. And of course, as always happens, the spirit world heard our prayers, and they gathered in a circle in the spirit world and said, well, what are we going to do to help them? And so they consulted for a while, and then they came up with a solution, and they selected a maiden, a woman who had recently crossed over, and she was selected to bring a gift down to the people. And so as she came down to the earth, she came down, couldn't touch the earth, but she came down very close to the earth where the people were gathered outside. And out of her heart came the caribou, and they came across her shoulder and down her arm and to her hand. And she couldn't touch the earth, but the caribou jumped off from her hand and onto the earth. And so for that time since, we have been known as the caribou people. And the Great Spirit gave a piece of the heart of the caribou to the Athabascans, and gave a piece of the heart of the Athabascan to the caribou. And so this is why we have such a close relationship with that animal. It was part of the first vision that I had actually back in the 80s. And so if that gives you an idea of our native ways, we rely very heavily on our traditional stories to reintroduce our culture, our history, our medicines, and our way of life and our spirituality back to the people, because it was almost gone after 100 years of being illegal. It was illegal for us to practice our ways, 1883 up until 1978. And so these stories have emerged, and it has allowed the people to reconnect with their spirituality in new ways. So I really treasure our stories for that reason. Now, what I'm going to do with my presentation, I would love it if we could have several Q&As instead of just one at the end. if I can just figure out how to organize my thoughts, I'll take a break and welcome Q&A for 5 minutes or so, and then go back to my presentation. And that way you can, I've noticed that when I attend webinars, questions come up immediately. And by the end of an hour or whatever, I've forgotten what my question was, because, the topic has moved on. So with your permission, I'd like to do it that way, to have several Q&A. And I don't know how you usually do it, whether somebody speaks out loud or they put it into the notes, but if you can guide me, Dawn,
Right.
then if they put it into the notes, maybe you can read it to me, because I really don't turn on that notes section.
Well, we can do it different ways. So we can either put it in, have them put it in the chat, or they can raise their hand. So a lot of times we do raising hands, and that way I can see right away, because sometimes I'll miss something if it's in the chat. So if at some point, wherever you want to stop, then we can have people just raise their hand.
Mhm.
And
Okay, I'll rely on you to moderate then. Thank
I
you so
will.
much.
Absolutely.
I'd like to introduce Elderberry Wisdom Farm. We just celebrate our 5th year. And so we're very young, we're very new, and yet we've grown dramatically, I believe, because of the need in the world, in our community. So I'd like to just share a little bit about the breadth of our work. And, I think that you may have seen the notes prior to this and the announcement. We give opportunities for Native Americans and other people of color, basically to strengthen their traditional ties with the land, with the sacred landscapes that we love down here, and to build career pathways into agricultural and horticultural fields. We really work heavily on restoring that cultural identity that we have, and the health and wellness resilience of our people, many of whom have suffered from different mental health issues, addictions, and poverty, and it all kind of combines in the lives of many of our people. So we are located here in rural Marion County, Oregon, and we really focus exclusively on this area because we go out and we work in the local natural areas. Our classroom is outdoors. So we train cohorts of interns in the spring, the summer, and the fall, in habitat restoration, in native plant nursery development. We do organic forestry as well now, just getting ready to approach that topic. And then, of course, organic farming. So I think that this group probably focuses a lot on the organic farming, but as Native people, we really work on the native plants because it is an essential piece of our food sovereignty. We have those 4 career tracks that we've developed. And so when somebody comes aboard as an intern, we vet them carefully to make sure that they're going to fit our program and that they have a future with us. And so we make sure that they are truly interested in pursuing a conservation career. And so we make all of our materials culturally tailored to fit their learning styles. And so we teach those topics because of funding opportunities that we have with different organizations. So we really started in 2002, I believe it was, with the Traditional Ecological Knowledge Workforce Development Project in partnership with a local community college. And so it's a 5-year project for which we're very grateful, because we don't have to go out and raise money every single year to fulfill that. We've got 5 years of funding that goes into 2026. Then we also, in 2023, we developed the Native Agriculture Biodiversity Accelerator, because we made this more into, instead of a learning about careers, we made it into a social and economic development project where people could, after several years of training with us and our partners, we have a number of collaborative partnerships that support us with technical assistance. So with all of that combined support, they're able to become an emerging owner and operator of one of the businesses we're forming. And then our last project, which we just formed this year, is our Native American Climate Adaptation Partnership, because we're really focused on climate. I would say that most of our projects are really climate repair work, but we call it climate adaptation in order to be more positive about the work we're doing. So I think special mention needs to be made about the learning model, because I mentioned it earlier. we've evolved since, I would say, for 12 or 13 years, since about 2012, when we first developed what you could call STEAM curriculum: science, technology, engineering, Native American arts and culture, and math. And so our curriculum was for middle school students, and we piloted it in several schools here in the area. It's still being used, in fact, in the Beaverton schools out there in the Portland metropolitan area. So it includes culturally tailored classroom education with lesson plans that include traditional ecological knowledge. It includes especially the experiential service learning outdoors in the local ecosystems of the Mid-Willamette Valley of Oregon here. We always include health and wellness resilience awareness, because most of our people have suffered from but may not be aware of the impact of the trauma that their ancestors had, and they're still helping to heal that with their ancestors. And so we raise their awareness of that so that they can strengthen their connection with their ancestry and bring healing into the spirit world where their ancestors abide. We also teach Native American leadership development, Native American communication development, because it's different than dominant society. And then lastly, as I've mentioned before, we really focus on social and economic development. So I would love to take a break. I know this is very early, but I've said so much. And then I will probably go into the health and wellness resilience work that we do next. But if anybody would like to ask a question, I'll just take a pause here and actually take a drink of my smoothie, keep my throat moist.
Good. Yes, we have a couple of questions. Farzaneh.
Yeah, I was wondering if your curriculum is available on your website.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I was wondering if your curriculum is available on the website to use as a guide to adapt to Ontario.
I think we could share some parts of it. I don't think that the lesson plans are appropriate outside of the Mid-Willamette Valley because we're so ecologically involved. But we do have an outline and we have summaries, like for instance, the climate adaptation work we're doing. I just developed a one-pager here but in terms of the lesson plans themselves, I'd have to ask the board because it's a copyrighted curriculum.
No, I'm not interested in the lesson plan rather than your framework.
Our framework, sure, yes.
If that is available, I'll be very interested.
Yeah, we definitely have material, and I don't know if anybody's looked at our website. We keep trying to add content, and especially in our newsletters that give more information on the work we're doing. We would love to make it replicable to other communities. Thank you.
Winnie?
Yes, you mentioned a board, and so you do have some way of governing yourselves. And I wonder, what are the safeguards to keep your vision pure as you have so many collaborators and funding outside of your own control?
Okay, yes, so we do have a board of directors, and it is what you could call a working board. So our board of directors is actively involved in my work because we're at about probably between 400,000 and 500,000 right now after 5 years. And it's an awful lot for our small staff to take care of. So we meet with our board once a month, and they approve things such as new grants and activities. And I try to give a full report on all the work we're doing. And so we're governed more like a Native American community where everybody has a voice, because most of America has a top-down patrilineal leadership model where people are told what to do, and it's not the Native way. And so what we do is we have a way of consulting together as equals, and we listen to one another and we make decisions after all of that. It's very similar to Native American collaboration, Native American communication. And so it's not foreign to Baha'is the way we govern ourselves as a group, with everybody being equal. And in terms of the safeguards to keep our vision pure, we really believe in sharing what we know. We have probably 12, and it's growing, 12 or more partnerships here in the Mid-Willamette Valley. And so we pride ourselves in being able to openly share what it is that we know. And of course, that makes Native communities nervous, because many Native communities don't believe in sharing. And so we have a delicate role that we play of trying to be appropriate at all times and follow protocol that is within the Native American community and the broader community, because we believe that the work we do needs to be used as an example to the rest of the world. And so it's hard, you know, when we talk about our vision being pure. The vision is pure, the people are not. You know, Great Spirit created us to make mistakes. And so we constantly have to deal with issues that come up. And during COVID, we knew that there were significant issues that kind of practically fractured our small nonprofit. There were conflicts that came up that couldn't easily be resolved, and we had to resolve them. And so, you know, thanks to our prayers, and you know, and the work of the board of directors, we were able to survive, but it was not easy. Nothing about this work is easy, but the thing of it is, we're so dedicated to selfless service to our people that it doesn't matter how hard it is. What's important is that we keep persevering and not giving up just because some little problem happens. And even if a big problem happens, we still continue to work through it. And I think the prayers held us together, because this vision, this nonprofit came from a vision. I was told by the spirit world about over a decade ago to move out of Portland and to form a group where we could teach Native Americans how to farm and raise food so they didn't have to starve to death. And so, you know, we had to figure out what that meant. And then I had to sell my home and move. It took me about 5 years to move, I think it was, but I've been down here now for over 7 years. And, you know, we're still growing. I would say that, you know, the safeguards to keep our vision pure is very challenging. We had Baha'is on the board, we had Native people on the board, and all of them together, you know, we still struggled. Even if we have these high ideals, sometimes the high ideals were actually an impediment, because I discovered that people had misconceptions about what was going on. And when they put their idealism into gear, it tended to push other people out, including Native Americans. And so we had a real struggle with racism within the Baha'i and Indian collaboration that we had. And it's still to be understood. To me, it's still a mystery. It's confusing, but I just realized that I had to persevere through it in order to keep, I was told by the spirit world what I would be doing, and I took it very serious and was not willing to give up just because people were challenging what it was we were doing. We received quite a bit of funding initially, and that always creates a problem, because I think people start to want to think that maybe they would be running, they would do a better job, or we would be more successful if they would run it and I would step away. And that has continued to be an issue for me. So when we're talking about keeping our vision pure, as you said, it comes down to our own personal spiritual qualities and our own commitment to be a selfless servant to the people. And that's what I constantly strive to do. I have prayed for patience. I prayed for tolerance, forgiveness. I've also prayed for, you know, compassion and empathy for people, even those who attack me. And there were people that did attack me. Right now, we're in a very blessed time where we're not observing it. Attacks, and we're having a highly successful internship this summer with 8 Native American interns. And one of them is from Vietnam. One of them is actually from the East Pacific Islands. And so we are in a short period of time, but I'm expecting that in the next month or in the next year, there will be more questions come up and more issues that arise, more conflicts, I guess you could say. And I think that, you know, remember when Abdu'l-Baha spoke of that internalized oppression, there's an inherent air of superiority, but people don't know it because it's inherent. It's just built in them. So it's our role as Native Americans not to turn that around and create reverse racism. It's our job to be forgiving, tolerant, and patient, and try to teach the model, if only people would listen. So that's a very long answer to a question that you may have had other expectations for the answer, but I wanted to raise the fact that it's been very difficult to do this work. I think when it comes to our collaborators, you brought up the collaborators, they are like absolutely fabulous. We have the city of Salem, we have the Marion Soil and Water Conservation District, we have numerous soil and water, watershed councils around here. We have academic institutions like Oregon State University and Chemeketa Community College. We have the Institute for Applied Ecology. I love them dearly because they've done so much work to restore native plant species here in the Willamette Valley. You know, the list goes on, and pretty soon it's going to include the Oregon Department of Forestry. So we're really getting into urban forestry with that partnership. But I think the collaborators have been very easy to work with. The board and other people who have joined us to help us have been very problematic, but I'm still surviving. So I guess that's a good answer.
Well, it really is. And I think you gave us spiritual guidelines for social and economic development. So thank you.
Mhm. Well, I could continue on with my presentation. I would love to talk about the health and wellness resilience work we're doing with our interns.
Well,
So
we do
we
have two more questions. I don't know if they can wait.
Oh, no, go ahead. Two more
Okay.
questions. Sure.
Yeah, two more hands raised here. Arthur?
Okay. You mentioned issues of climate change, and with all these terrible forest fires now taking place because of climate change, is there indigenous wisdom about forest management that might also help to prevent some of the damage? And I think there must be a lot of wisdom, that could, in terms of managing forests and reducing the risk of fire, that might be useful in these changing times. Thank you.
Well, yes, for thousands of years, we tended our environment. We took care of all the foods, and we had a commitment with the spirit world that if we would take care of them, then they would take care of us. And so it was a spiritual bond between us and our traditional first foods, which we regarded the spirit world giving to us as a gift. And so our obligation was to take care of them. And I've noticed that in recent decades, as the climate has had an impact here in Oregon. We have a lot of suffering among Native people as they watch their foods shrivel and die because we're losing in the mountains, we're losing our glaciers. And so they're losing groundwater. There's contamination of the water from farmers and ranchers using phosphates and things and pesticides, herbicides, and et cetera. So there's a lot of things. The forest fires affected us in Oregon. And right now, we have like over a dozen fires in Oregon right now. Some were man-caused, some were acts of God through lightning and thunderstorms. But in 2020 on Labor Day, a number of fires destroyed a lot of the Willamette Valley down the North Santiam Canyon and swept through and it killed people, destroyed hundreds of homes and a number of communities that are just rebuilding. It's very traumatic. I belong to a Sundance community whose leader, my medicine man and his wife, they burned out in Paradise, California, back about 7-8 years ago when the campfire spread in Paradise. It created the most deaths of any fire at that time. And they're still being threatened today. My medicine man's wife, Wope, went and picked up her two daughters down in Paradise because they asked for evacuation of Paradise 2 days ago because of the fire going on down in Chico, the largest fire in America right now. It's out of control and consuming many things. So yes, we do have indigenous wisdom, but unfortunately no one listened to us. And so as our new neighbors came into Oregon, they didn't speak our language. They thought that we were subhuman. And so no one would listen to us or follow the way that we had tended the earth for thousands of years. I think you heard me say that my village has been there for 14,500 years. And down here in Oregon, it's pretty close with at least 12,500 years, if not longer. And so these people, when the new neighbors came into our area, it looked like it had never been occupied because it was so pure. The ecosystems were just really well tended. So what happened is all the cultural burns that we were doing, because every fall of the year we would burn just as the picking season was ending and the hunting season was ending, they would start fires throughout different systems and it would burn down the vegetation so that they could manage. It made their berries stronger, it made the plants stronger. So they kind of banned burning like that. And so what we have consequently in Oregon is tremendous amount of undergrowth that is especially the invasive grasses and also the overpopulation of Douglas fir trees that are like a match. And so they just go up in flame tremendously quickly. So we do have a lot of indigenous wisdom about forest management, and we are just for the first time being able to do a partnership with the Oregon Department of Forestry, thanks to the Biden administration's IRA, that what did they call it? Inflation Reduction Act, gave funding to to our state community to provide urban forestry to underserved people. And so we qualify for that funding, and we think that we can make an impact and maybe introduce the cultural burns. Since we never spray, we do manual removal of invasives, and we always plant exclusively natives. So when you're planting only native populations and doing it on a multi-planting basis, so you've got multiple species in one area, the biodiversity of the soil is stronger. When the soil is stronger and richer, what they call the biodiversity, and there's so many factors with that we're studying, then your plants are going to be richer, they're going to be healthier, they'll be able to overcome some climate stress. And so I don't think that, when we're talking about man versus Great Spirit, I don't think we're going to be as successful in this purification phase of fire and all the flooding and everything that Great Spirit is creating on the earth to cleanse and purify the earth. But we do plan to use our TEK, traditional ecological knowledge, to do the best we can to restore local ecosystems using native wisdom, but it's integrated with Western science. We never exclusively use our principles and our processes and our practices, but we do integrate it with our Western science, that PhD scientists that are doing a fabulous job out here, by the way. So that's a short to medium answer to your question.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And so just one more before we get back. Fred?
Thank you very much, Ms. Rose, about the information that you provided to us. At the beginning, I had made a note to bring some comments to the work group, and with regard to within the guidance of our institutions on social action and discourse with society, to address to include the environmental topics, which is concern of today's society. But I heard you address the climate change, and in answer to Mr. Hall, you referred to the nutrients aspects and pollution control of the water and things. It's really great that you gave some answer to the topics that I had in mind, and I had made note to bring it to attention of the work group. However, this, since my last 20 years of my work with the state of Maryland was the water quality aspect of the nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen phosphorus, which is coming to our waters in agriculture operation, mainly ag industries. And we initiated this program in 1998 in the state of Maryland under the title of Nutrient Management Program. And it was after the fish dead in Chesapeake Bay because of these pollutions, and it became regulatory important things. And we had Water Quality Improvement Act of 1997. However, it is very important issues, and it needs probably still some farmers in areas that they have free animal waste from poultry industry or others, that they receive it free to put it in their land without following those important steps that they have to work on that before they apply the quantity and things, which is outlined in detail under the Water Quality Improvement Act of the Maryland. And I became, after working with the University of Maryland to develop educational aspects through cooperative extension to farmers, and also providing the strategy for that we have developed. And I had become the person in charge of implementation of the law. And it had become sometimes political things with regard to those people on the top, that they wanted to keep agricultural operations happy and maintain their seats in their party or political party and things. However, it is very, very important technical issue that it should be, it has been expanded after we started in Maryland, in other neighboring states, that they were draining to the bay, and in international conferences that we had annually, it was introduced to all other states, and I hope they're all implementing it, and they are providing this assistance to farmers, educational and awareness. And we had the second item in strategy was to cost share, to financial support, because now they have to buy fertilizer instead of free poultry waste and other waste, and we called it cost sharing.
Mhm.
And the last,
Fred, I was just wondering, did you have a question?
okay, thank you very much. This was just, I brought it to the attention of the work group,
Okay.
and my thanks to
Thank you.
speaker.
Well, I think it's a wonderful example of what's happening in Chesapeake Bay. So thank you for your participation in that. All over the country, we're aware of the cleanup that has helped. You know, it never is perfect because, you know, the farmers do tend to not want to listen. But I do think that a lot of positives have been the financial support, it really helps too. But I do think it's a beautiful example. I do have a situation here in Oregon where we have a partnership with Oregon Tilth, and we have a 5-year agreement to introduce organic farming to tribes throughout Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And so our partner, Oregon Tilth, we got into a consultation with a woman in Umatilla a couple months ago, and they are heavily contaminated. The groundwater is heavily contaminated in the whole county where Pendleton is, where the Umatilla tribe is located. This woman wanted to start a farm on her property, and with her father, she wanted to start a poultry operation on another piece of tribally owned property. And she said, is it possible to transition it to organic? Well, I held a meeting with Oregon Tilth, which is the one that do the certification. They're the scientists that do the certification and test as a person is transitioning away from the chemicals. And they said, yes, absolutely, it's possible. You may have every well in Umatilla County contaminated, but yes, you can develop an organic, you know, operation, and we will help you transition. I do feel always when I'm doing my work to make it a positive outcome. And so we felt really good about that, despite the fact that there's so much contamination out there. We have to keep hope alive, and that's one of the biggest roles that we play. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all those thoughts. So Rose, if you want to continue.
I'm just trying to soothe my throat so that it holds up. So we have our native teachings that we share with younger generations. We're really committed to helping youth overcome historical trauma. And so we call it health and wellness resilience. We call it, journey of transformation. We have a number of names for it, but we basically raise awareness of our people because they seem to have stuffed the fact of what happened to their ancestors. Some people are aware of it and some are not, but they don't understand the concept of historical trauma and the fact that it is in our DNA what happened to our ancestors. So it's actually a spiritual process of reconnecting ourselves with our ancestors, praying for their healing. And when we pray for the healing of our ancestors in the spirit world, it shifts us because our ancestors are constantly working with us in the unseen world. And some people are aware of this and some are not. But when we pray for our ancestors, it allows them to heal. And so it makes our connection stronger and it creates more healing in our own lives. So as we raise awareness of this, we're able to help people to walk on what we call that journey of transformation, where they start out perhaps as like an orphan or someone who's suffered from something, and they go on a journey to trying to find a solution to their problem. Even feeling that if they go on this journey and it means their death, it's better than where they're living now because life is so difficult. And so as they travel on this journey, they meet an elder and they're able to find an elder, role model, or a mentor who helps them. They take them in, they help them, and they guide them. And so that next step is actually the introduction to someone who is able to provide that role modeling of healthy spiritual qualities and cultural values to them. And so then the next step of the journey is they begin to integrate those teachings until the last step is they become that role model or hero, the hero within, they call it. I think you may have heard of the hero's journey of transformation. It's very well known in the world by Tom Moyer. He took all the native stories and taught the world about, this whole journey of transformation. So we use it as well. And so we incorporate all of that and we include Native American leadership in the health and wellness resilience because it's different. As I mentioned earlier, it's different from dominant society's leadership. It's an earth-based, much like the Baha'i faith, it's an earth-based structure that it starts from down from the people and goes up. And so that everybody has a voice in leadership. And there again, you've got Native American communication, where we have to teach some of our youth how to speak up in class. We do not do lectures in our classroom education. We'll speak no longer than 5 minutes. And then we ask them what they think, how do they feel? And we go around in a talking circle basis and everybody says something about what they just learned. So they're learning to find their voice. They're learning to understand their role in their community and the fact that they're beginning to play a leadership role. So all of this, and along with mentoring, we have our own mentoring of all of our people. Every one of us is a mentor, and then we have peer mentoring and peer learning. So these youth, and some of them are adults up into their 30s, they're all learning from one another because they have a tremendous amount of wisdom and knowledge from the tribe, whether it be the Siletz tribe here, the Grand Ronde tribe, the Klamath tribe, the Hawaiian, whichever group, even the woman from Vietnam. They're all learning from one another what they learned from their ancestry. And so I think one of the biggest factors is in our resilience is we teach about spirituality. And it used to be that we were not supposed to talk about our spirituality. It was kept quiet. And I think it's kind of a reverse racism thing where we held on to our spirituality, thinking if we told white people about it, that they would take it away from us, which actually it did happen in 1883. It was illegal in 1883 for us to practice our religion. What really wasn't a religion, it was our ceremonies and our spirituality. And so basically our spirituality, we look at it as something we practice on a daily basis, not something we go, to church once a week or as Baha'is to feast once every 19 days. We live it every day, every moment. So we teach them about their spirituality and we never dishonor the other religions such as Christianity. We always remind people that Christianity came from God. It came from Great Spirit as a gift, but it was 2,000 years ago. And, you know, as we've evolved our religion, you know, there are more teachings. So I get to occasionally bring up Baha'i teachings at the same time. So, and I think that the last part of our health and wellness is we bring up the social and economic development, because our people have lived with such bitter poverty for so long that we have to reorient them. And then you know, we form businesses that we're going to train them over 3 years so that they can own and operate their own business and eventually have multi-generational prosperity. That is a big piece of the health and wellness resilience. So I'm kind of wondering if it might be a good idea to just take some more questions at this point, because this is a very big issue, the resilience that we work with.
Right. Right. Paul has a question.
My question is, what's the process of recruiting the youth? How do you interest the youth to get involved in this? Where do they come from, and what's that? I guess that whole process.
Well, when we were really small, like I just think I just told you, we're only 5 years old as of last, you know, a couple months ago in May. So at first, you know, our outreach was very limited because we didn't have many people following us at our website or in social media. And so we would go to powwows, and we would also ask our partners and also the local educational institutions such as Oregon State University and Chemeketa Community College to announce. And so gradually we began to get more people interested. And so our recruitment has been very challenging. We've had to be patient. But this summer, that's the most interns we've ever had. We've usually averaged 4 interns at a time. And it was hard sometimes to get all Native Americans. Chemeketa, when we first formed our partnership with they said, Rose, you know, Native Americans are only 1 or 2% of the local community. So are you willing to accept other people of color if you don't have enough Native Americans enrolling? And I said, yes, absolutely. So we've expanded our recruitment to include Latino, you know, Asian. We have, like I said, we have a Vietnamese woman who's going to Willamette University and getting her master's in business administration there. And we hired her as a summer intern because she graduated from Saigon University in pharmacy. And she had applied to us, and we're trying to write a business plan right now. So she's actually an intern with us and actually helping us to develop the business plan for Native American Plant Nursery LLC. So yes, the recruitment has been very challenging. I just made a new poster, a front and back. I'll be happy to share it by email with you if you'd like to see it. But we went to a powwow yesterday, and, you know, people come up to the powwow booth and we get them to sign up, and we actually going to powwows and putting posters in local communities helps us to, you know, get more people aboard. So we're finally have made it to the point where we have more and more people signing up. But at first we were very worried how we were going to have enough. You know, 2 times we've only had 3 interns when we were striving for 4. And then we went through a phase where we had 5, and now we have 8. So that's good growth.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Winnie?
I always come up with so many questions. Some time ago, maybe a decade ago, I heard a talk on the Qualla boundary of North Carolina with the Cherokee people. And I wonder if the science of that, if it was true, and does this science prove out in your wellness and health that the Trail of Tears survivors there, or if they didn't survive, their grandchildren had a different DNA and were getting diabetes. And we do know that DNA apparently can change, which when I was going to school, we didn't know that. I don't think we knew much about DNA anyway. So then people have done that huge studies with Kaiser Permanente of adverse childhood experiences. And I wonder if any of that is part of your health and wellness. And do you feel these things are part of the understanding of Native American cultures.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we're very familiar with it. Now, I know about the Choctaw Trail of Tears because the founder of the University of Washington's Indigenous Wellness Research Institute in Seattle, Karina Walters, she's Choctaw, and she did her PhD on this. And they got funded to do a project walking the Trail of Tears with their Choctaw youth. And it was very true that it did have an impact upon their health. It does change, it does damage the DNA. Their DNA changes because of the trauma. And we look at it on a spiritual basis and we say that, you know, all of those ancestors who died on the Trail of Tears and were traumatized and went home to the spirit world with that mental illness, it translates into the lives of today's young people. Well, it translates into the lives of every generation since then, but since we're dedicated to our young people right now, yes, they are traumatized by their ancestors going hundreds of years back. And that's our job, is to be aware of that and then pray for the healing of our ancestors so that our own people can be healed. And so you might, I'm not familiar with Kaiser Permanente, but I am very familiar with the adverse childhood experiences, and it has a tremendous effect. Diabetes is rampant, as is many other diseases. I have friends that are very overweight, you know, and they're suffering. Up in Alaska, when we're able to have all that moose and caribou meat, we stay slender and we don't really get it. But diabetes is something that if you have type 2 diabetes, you can overcome it with diet. So you'll notice that in today's food sovereignty movement and all of these food sovereignty coalition gatherings that we're holding, people are being encouraged to return to their traditional first foods. I'm going to a food sovereignty gathering in September at Yakima, and the Yakima, Umatilla, and Warm Springs people are all gathering to share their 25 foods that are their traditional foods and reintroducing it to the people so that they could see how their health can be improved. And, you know, the mental health, the physical health, and the spiritual health, all of those go together to make a really, you know, strong Native American. And yes, thank you for mentioning the North Carolina Cherokee. I think they're very similar to the Choctaw, which Karina is, and I'm very grateful that they're funding the research, the health and the mental health research of our people. It's making a difference.
I didn't know about this book. This is a one I'm reading right now called The Deepest Well, and the subtitle is Healing the Long-Term Effects of Childhood Adversity, and it's by a woman who works in an underserved community in California, and she's finding that many of the illnesses, not just diabetes, in the children that she works with, she's a pediatric, they're tracing now back through the help of that ACEs study that Kaiser Permanente did. They're now tracing other diseases. So that's very interesting that as you work with your local people, perhaps you'll find other things that we have thought were just genetic or anyway. I'll stop talking. I've taken too much time, but thank you for your answer.
No, I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much. I appreciate knowing the title of that. And I don't read many books. I probably won't read it, but I'm just so happy to know about it. And the fact that they are tracing the diseases, and people seem to leave off the spiritual factor. They'll bring up all the other physical and mental health, but they don't bring up the spiritual. And I think that the spiritual needs to lead all of the others. So as a Baha'i and as a Native American, that's what I try to tell other people. No, but I appreciate the long comments. You know, we only have a limited amount of time to present today, but I do appreciate everything that is being said today. Thank you so much.
Good. It looks like you can maybe want to continue.
Well, I'd love to talk about traditional ecological knowledge, and I think that you all are aware of TEK. And so we emphasize that heavily. And that is, quite frankly, what attracts all the people. Everybody's hungry to learn about TEK since it's been, quote, discovered. And a lot of the people that sign up are extremely motivated to learn about it because it's been absent. And so we emphasize it in the career pathway planning, telling people that they do not have to work in dominant society where they're, we just had one intern start who just resigned where she was working because she was not being treated properly. And where we are, we value our interns so much that we work very heavily on keeping a very positive environment for the interns and for the staff that we hire. We can only afford to hire people on a part-time basis because we only have so much money. But we just really value them, their mental health and their spiritual health. And, we guide them carefully. We make mistakes, of course. Sometimes we might be insensitive or something or another. As human beings, we make little mistakes, but for the most part, this summer's internship has been almost 100% totally positive. We were able to use TEK since that's what attracted them. I'm just going to read a piece here that it's been described by the government as one of the many important bodies of knowledge that contributes to the scientific, technical, social, and economic advancements of the United States and to our collective understanding of the natural world and decision-making. And of course, these people are always referring to the outside where they're not referring to the inside spiritual transformation going on, but that's okay. We understand. But as Indian people, it is a spiritual movement. It is the old ceremonies. It's the old songs. It's the old traditional stories. It is even, according to a woman leader of the Navajo down in New Mexico, Arizona, she's the president of the Northern Arizona University, one of the programs there. She said, even our children's lullabies is traditional ecological knowledge. And so, we get into the intimate parts of our everyday life and we live it, we breathe it. And to us, that is what TEK is. And so it goes way beyond the science. And it gets into our spiritual beliefs and our spiritual practices and our oral, and even now written, since we learned how to phonetically write down things. We were always oral tradition before, and now we have written languages. And so it has to do with that relationship between people and environmental systems and Great Spirit. So, it crosses all the way from biological, physical, cultural, and spiritual. That's what TEK is. And another quote that I found, it has evolved over millennia for thousands of years, in other words, continues to evolve, and it includes insights based on evidence that is acquired through direct contact with the environment and long-term experiences like our grandparents, our parents, us, and our children, our grandchildren were out on our local sacred landscapes, working there, gathering there, praying there, doing ceremony there. And so we're observing all that time things such as climate change, and also, the more observations we make, the lessons we learn, and the skills that we learn, we pass them down from generation to generation, such as the cultural burning that I was talking about earlier. So that's what TEK is about. There's a tremendous hunger for it, and I'm very grateful for that hunger. We spend time showing films of other Native people during our classes. We give plenty of time for them to talk, and we always ask, how do you feel? What do you think? And they share, and we get them to dig deep into their culture and into their spirituality to find out who they really are. Because sometimes when they enter our class, they really don't know who they are as a Native person. It was practically illegal for us to be Native for 170 years out here in Oregon since the 1850s. And so, they massacred us, they killed us. They used to put bounties on us and they would pay people to kill us. That's what they did to the people out here. And so, it's very hard to be able to tell today's people, you can look at your culture and heritage and be proud. You don't need to feel ashamed and think you're subhuman, but this is what we actually have to deal with. So I wonder if I should ask questions again before I move on. Because this is a big deal. It's talking about TEK is a big deal, and it is aligned with our spirituality more so than any government agency could express. Excuse me.
Yes, Neil has a question.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Rose Iber. It's a real honor to to be here today. I'm just wondering about your interns. How do you recruit them? How wide kind of catchment area do you recruit from? And how do you publicize your internships?
Yeah, we spoke of this earlier. We started very slowly and had almost no impact at first. And we actually got people coming from Arizona to attend, but we realized that wasn't going to help us because we're trying to build local ecosystems. She learned a lot and went back to university. She was getting her master's degree at the time in hydrology because, you know, the Navajo experienced such a miserable time with the, you know, the contaminants in their soil from all the work during World War II. And it continues to this day. They continue to mine uranium, which is killing the people. So she went back down there to get her master's degree in hydrology, but it didn't really benefit us. So we've been recruiting only locally, even people from an hour away. I have to accept those applications, but I have to really vet them carefully because we can't afford to pay. We pay them really well, almost $18 an hour for them to come and be trained because we know that our people are low income and we're going to attract people by paying more. You know, you can go to work at Burger King and earn $17 an hour. So we're paying $18 an hour. But we do vet them very carefully because we want them to continue with us. I was just speaking with a woman yesterday who's a Siletz tribal member and lives an hour south of me at Eugene. She's going to Lane Community College and going to graduate next spring. And I told her, you are hired. You are hired. When you finish those 2 terms and get your degree, you know, we want you to come and live with up here in you know, Salem area. If you want to get your bachelor's degree at Oregon State University, please go on, you know, and get your higher degree. But we want to hire you. So our whole purpose for vetting them is to make future employees part-time. Of course, like I said earlier, we can't afford full-time people. We just don't have enough funding. And so the recruitment has gone well, thank God.
Thank you.
So, Winnie has another question? No? Mistake, huh? Okay.
I just want to say that Winona means oldest granddaughter in the Lakota in the Lakota language. Winona means oldest granddaughter, I believe. It's translated that way.
Yes, my mother thought it wasn't spelled the way she thought, so she put another N in it.
Yes, I noticed that, but it's okay. We take any spelling.
Lee has a question.
Yeah, I'm really curious and excited about this traditional ecological knowledge, the TEK, and wondering, this is the first time I've heard it, like especially phrased, you know, with that acronym, and wondering, you know, if there are resources that y'all use, or is this like a term like generally known, or is this a term y'all have used to capture what you're doing there, or you know?
Yes, it's very well known. It's like at the top of the list of the top 10 priorities of Native people today who want to work in conservation. Even the Biden administration has integrated TEK into the requirement. Every federal agency must work with tribes right now, and during this current administration anyway. We're hoping it will continue because we have had so much support from federal governments. That's why we might have an opportunity with the Oregon Department of Forestry, because TEK has been encouraged, and to partnership and collaborations with tribes has been encouraged to the point where we're now being allowed to co-manage land local to us, which we used to actually be it used to be our sacred land, but was taken away from us. And so the co-management, you know, there's land back movements going on, but the TEK is intimate. I think everybody day after day is learning more what that means in their local life. It's our way of working on the earth in connection with the spirit world, restoring the earth And, you know, planting native plant species is a big part of that. We are forming a native plant nursery, for instance, so all the plants we plant are going to be all native to our local ecosystems, and that's a big part of TEK.
And then is sort of like a follow-up, are there any
Oh, yes, resources.
land back organizations that y'all partner with in Oregon? I don't know.
Well, I just want to say that there is TEK resources. If you go and Google traditional ecological knowledge and maybe perhaps put the name of your local tribe, you're going to find a lot of documents.
Okay.
There's a ton of research been done on TEK, and I think that, you know, if you tuned into some of the local native, you know, daily newsletters that come out, you'll see a lot of TEK immersed into everything. So it's really good. But when it comes to the land back, that's increasingly happening all over the place. And a lot of non-native, you know, foundations and even governments are helping to make it possible to get land back, whether they pay for it or are given to it through grants or whatever. The local Grand Ronde tribe, they got 400 and something acres up the North Santiam River that they got back from a grant that they could not have afforded to buy, but the grant made it possible for them to buy this land. And starting in 2025, they'll be restoring it. It's heavily infested with invasives, of course. And the first thing you do is you do site assessment, and then you go and you do the invasive removal, and then you plant natives, and then you monitor it for a significant period of time. Another thing that is happening with our land is we love it when they're introducing beavers, because it makes side channels, it widens the area where there's moisture, and it strengthens the groundwater so that if a wildfire sweeps through, it does not go on to the that moist area. And so people are discovering that there's, like up here in the North Santiam, which burned out in 2020, we're working in a natural area that has a beaver population, and we've already started doing invasive removal, but we're also doing site assessment and monitoring, and we're really going to monitor the growth of the beaver population and how the local landowners are accepting it. And most of them are embracing it because they don't want to be burned out again from another wildfire.
Thank you. That's so great to hear about this. This is something that probably many Americans are not aware of, that the impact of all these invasive plants. You know, particular, I know in the Northwest you have, just like we do here in the Southeast, is English ivy just takes over everything. And then we have kudzu, and there's so many different things that can just smother out any kind of native. I mean, if we look at our yards, I mean, if we were just to look at it in our yards, we'd be hard pressed to find natives in our yards here.
Mm-hmm.
So these are really important things. And
Yeah,
of course that has an impact then on all the animals and the insects and everything else within the ecosystem.
Yeah, and when we're removing those invasives and planting natives, we never spray. That's another part of our TEK, is that we will not add toxins to the soil and the water.
Wonderful. Any other questions right now, or should we move on? Fred, you have a question?
You're on mute. Fred, you're on mute. Do you want
Yes, thank you. You use the word spiritual aspect to help in a tools to, my question is how an economic business, any business which the goal is just highest return for their work and investment, how can we bring that spiritual aspect to their attention effectively?
Well, as Native people, our first thing is how we're going to strengthen the soil. What are we going to give? Before we ask for something in return, such as a harvest, we first ask, what can we do to help the earth? So that is a spiritual instruction that was given to us by Great Spirit. It's a commitment we made with the spirit world to take care of the earth, which is the gift to us. And so I think that most people don't look at it that way. And when you're getting into a business, you want to create a profit. But as a Native people, we always have a hybrid business model. We do not just try to create a profit. What we try to do is we try to do the give back, because we're very into giving. We're constantly trying to figure out how can we serve our community? What are their needs? What do they need? How can we help them? And so a lot of times when we're producing a product, we're going to be giving a lot of that back as a spiritual thank you to the spirit world for making that raw material first available to us. And then after that, the last half of it, and we do have to control that generosity because we could go broke. But the last half of that is we can make a profit also off of that same product. Like we formed Blue Elderberry Farm LLC. We're going to be making blue elderberry syrup that's locally sourced, organic, and and made by Native people. And we're also going to be making elderflower remedies for eczema and the other skin diseases that are so prevalent out there right now. And so what we do is, first of all, we go to our Indian Health Service and say, do you know any Native people that need this product? And if they're willing to do a pilot, a test with us, we will give them the product for the healing of their skin. And so profit really doesn't become the first point. We have to realize that, number one, we're spiritual people, and our commitment has to be honored that we're serving the people. And then in return for that, we have to be very practical and develop a financial plan and a marketing plan that will allow us to be able to support our families, and in fact have the business grow to the point that over generations they will own and operate that business and will have multi-generational prosperity. So we do think it's possible. It does take longer, but it's what we call a hybrid system. And I discovered the Maori people of New Zealand have really done their research on their hybrid business plans. And you could do a research on Maori social and economic development and get a lot of documents on how they're making that possible to do that hybrid system. And I've been learning from them. And we kind of follow our own instincts on what's right. We have to make sure that we can also make a profit, because we don't want our family to starve to death just because we're giving everything away. So there has to be a practical medium. But I do think that is the future of Native American, or excuse me, of Baha'i social and economic development, that we have to realize that people have an obligation, first of all, to Great Spirit to give back, and then at the same time to support their families. And that's what we want to do. And it takes a long time. It takes longer. One thing we never do is to go into debt, because then you're making interest payments and you're wasting your money with interest. So what we've done with our Blue Elderberry Farm LLC is most of the grant money that's come into the nonprofit has helped that for-profit to get its start, so that we're not going to have thousands of dollars of debt when we start to get our first crop of elderberries. We would never survive. But as long as we go into a zero debt philosophy, and the nonprofit is getting grant funding from foundations and even government agencies, we're able to develop this learning, this business, so that they can assume that our emerging owners and operators can assume that and own it together as a group. One person is not owning that business. A group that has multiple skills and can keep it solvent and going forward is the best way to have that model, not just one individual owner or one family, but a group. And then one of the owners is actually Elderberry Wisdom Farm, the nonprofit. So our nonprofit is one of the owners of all of those businesses, because we do their payroll, we do their taxes, we do their personnel work, and we help to keep them going when they may not know that those are important factors to their survival and sustainability.
No, that's a lot.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I think in the last period of time that we have left, we could talk about our emphasis on training Native youth, because as you know about Native Americans, we always look back to this last 7 generations, and we look forward to the next 7 generations. And if you've ever read Baha'i materials on this thing, we actually are talking about 70 generations back and 70 generations forward. As Baha'is, it goes much deeper. And so that's something that we're constantly trying to learn from. And we have an obligation to help our youth to be really good role models, to be patient and tolerant with them. We've had some rascals, be interns in the past, especially during COVID when they were acting out and having mental health issues and being troubled and angry. As climate change has emerged, you've got younger people angry at today's leaders because they're not, keeping the environment pure, and we're threatened with extinction. The younger people are saying, I don't even know if I want to raise any children because I don't know if there'll be a future world for us. But as Baha'is, we know there will be. It's just going to be an earth-based instead of a domination from superiority. And so I think that's the difference, is we're giving our youth hope because we're giving them a voice and realizing you are at the foundation of our leadership. It's an earth-based leadership, and Great Spirit in the world of nature is our teacher. We are the students. And so the youth are learning to defer to nature and to their spirituality as well as to us as the elders. So, it's been working so far. I just have to take a moment. I'm just going to disappear for a moment if you all want to talk yourself, and I'll be right back.
Anyone have any thoughts?
Well, Dawn, I don't know if you saw that Farzaneh had a question.
Yes, I did see that.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you want to.
I just wanted to.
Comment. Go ahead.
It was a comment. I just wanted to mention that while building the ARC building, the question of longevity of the material was very important. So compared to short-term response of the economic plans, we are looking at long-term, and it proves that if you use a material which is good for long-term and you don't have to replace anything in long-term, it will prove to be cheaper. So what Rose was talking about, if you think of 7 generations to come, it will be more economical for the 7th generation, though it may not be economical in 5 years' term.
Yeah, it was interesting that she said 70 generations. So does anyone know where that comes from? Has anyone heard that before?
Well, we know we're building a system for 500,000 years.
That's true.
There's 1,000 years of this dispensation, but we're looking far beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it
Rose,
comes
we were
from either,
wondering.
but it'd be nice to find out. I don't know where it came from either.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that is interesting. 70, to think about it that way.
Well, are there any questions you have specifically about how to work with youth?
Well, here I am again.
Okay.
When we had an apprentice program that started here and went kind of worldwide, we had contracts, agreements with both the sustainable farm to which they were going and with the youth themselves. Do you use anything like that?
Yes, we call it internships, of course, but it is like an apprenticeship program. And so we do that constantly. We're doing our internships with people, and they last. We have one in the spring, one in the summer, and one in the fall. And then we take a break during the winter to do our final reports, our grant writing, and our planning and curriculum writing. And so, yeah, we do that. And we do have contracts with like the federal government. Like, for instance, our agreement with Chemeketa Community College is from the USDA. And that's how we're teaching workforce development using TEK. We have a contract with them that came originally from also the USDA on organic transitioning. It's called TOPP, TOP, Transitioning to Organic Program. And so they're giving us a 5-year scope of work to find to work with tribes and Native people in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho as they transitioned to organic farming and organic cultivation. But I think these contracts are very important because that's what provides the funding for us to operate. And so we would love to find a farm operation. The biggest area of our concern is organic farming. People want to go into habitat restoration. They want to work in native plant nursery work. They're really interested in forestry. But when it comes to farming, I think a lot of people have been frightened away from farming because it's losing money. People are losing crops from climate change and different disasters. And, there's been a lot of problems in the press where people talk about going broke, or like in India, there have been a lot of suicides from farmers who just simply gave up on farming because of the climate and other things going on over there. And so, it's hard to find people who are just interested in farming. So what we're basically doing is we're doing an interplanting project where we're including native plants along with farm crops and doing what they call agroforestry projects, so that you're growing native plants and getting medicines and foods from them, but at the same time you're growing crops such as roots and vegetables and things like that. So that's we've been successful with our apprenticeship program. We just simply call it an internship, but I support almost any type of work like that and would love to have an apprenticeship program. It's a higher level of sophistication and it involves a certification of the work we're doing. We're not quite ready to go to the government to ask them to officially certify our work because we're so busy, but we would like to in the near future do that.
Yeah, I was interested in the program since I worked in community college for some time, and wondering where do these programs fit in with the community college? You mentioned workforce development. Is that a separate from curriculum, or is it separate from like a technical program? Where does it fit within the community college?
USDA started something called workforce development and funding workforce development of underrepresented people, basically. So workforce is fundable if you look at if you Google USDA and workforce development, you'll see the grant offerings. I could just share more that I think that's a big area is workforce development, and I'm trying to think also emerging farmer and rancher development programs is another area where you can get funding to do this type of work. We're planning on applying for that through another community college in our community so we can start our organic farm operation more in earnest because it's been the slowest one to develop. So it looks like we've got about 5 minutes left. Are there any other questions at all?
Anyone have a question or? Neil?
Dear Rose, it'd be so good if you could join our agricultural working group committee, because your great strength is that you're working practically and the rest of us are kind of reading about it, whereas you're working very much at the interface of so many different issues. And also you have the indigenous wisdom, which is so important for the work. I've been on this committee for some time, but I think you would be a much better person than me on it. I'll just leave that out there. But I also wanted to there was just one more idea I wanted to share. I don't want to lose it, and I've lost it. Oh yes, do you know Matthew Slaughter and Earthford in Oregon? He's a Baha'i that's very much working on soil improvement.
I didn't know he was Baha'i, but I've heard of Earthford, but I don't know anything about it, but I've not heard Matthew's name. Maybe he's down in Southern Oregon, perhaps. I don't quite remember where I saw that name.
Right, but he very much focuses on all the microorganisms in the soil as the key to soil health. But I think it's just interesting that he's in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, because that's what we're doing too. We're trying to strengthen the biodiversity of the soil, so that's very good. I would be happy to be a part of your working group. I was actually going to offer to join you as long as it doesn't take more than like once a month in a group consultation setting. I'm so busy that I work 7 days a week doing this, and I work until I get tired at night, and so I put in many hours. If anybody's run a small nonprofit, you know what I'm talking about, but I'd be happy to be a member of your working group.
It's just once a month.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
I think the practical side of our work, it makes a lot of sense. The work we're doing, it's experiential. So
Exactly.
we're doing experiential service learning, and that seems to give people the time to be on the earth and get the healing they need from the earth while they're actually helping to heal the earth.
Yes.
Are you going to come to Atlanta?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are you going to attend the ABS conference?
I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
It's unlikely I would go to a conference. I can do things on Zoom, but I really don't travel much. And I'm just getting ready to release my husband's biography. He was a Lakota medicine man and a spiritual leader, and I worked for 28 years getting his biography. It's called The 7 Commandments of the Sacred Buffalo Calf Maiden. And Martin Highbear, and with his birth and death, 1919 up to 1995. So I'm releasing his biography in September, and I'll be busy traveling and then having to come back to work to do my next fall internship. So I probably will rarely come to conferences, but I can always join you online.
Thank you.
That's great.
Mhm.
Great. Well, I think we're getting close to time, and I'm sure Rose has plenty of things to keep up with today. But Winnie, did you have another comment?
I wanted to point out that on the invitation that goes out each time, Rose, most of our presentations, Dawn creates a YouTube for. And Dawn, wouldn't there be one for Matthew Slaughter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is one. So in that invitation where, the invitation that goes out to the group, we have a list there of all the presentations and links to
Yes.
those presentations.
Yes, I've seen your list, but I didn't see his name. I'll look for it. And thank you so
Okay.
much for welcoming me today. It's been
Yeah.
wonderful being with you. Many prayers for you and all of your work. And thank you again.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose.
Yes, thank you.
I'm very grateful. Thank you.
May our work all blossom, all the work we're doing, may it blossom.
Yes.
Yes. Much appreciated. Thanks so much.
So I'm going to put my website address down here for anybody who needs it.
Okay, that's great.
You can sign up for our newsletter if you'd like to.
Oh, great. That's wonderful.
Okay.
And I'll give my email address.
Yes, that's great too. If anyone has any questions, I think there were some things that you said you had a poster.
Yes, I just developed a poster, combined 2 different issues together on one poster we've been passing out at the powwow.
Right. Love
If
to
I send
stick-
that to you, can you distribute it, Dawn?
Yes, I can. I can put a link to it in our next announcement.
Oh, very good. I'll be doing that then now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Bye.